Good morning, DC. Welcome into the Blitz. How you doing, sir?
Morning, Martin. Doing great. How about you today?
Doing well. Got several things we want to get to from this past weekend. Some celebratory, some sad, and then we'll also look forward. We're going to talk a little bit, catch a little bit up on Bart Starr before we go to Pat and his thoughts on Bart Starr. I wanted to see just if you had any thoughts or stories or anything you want to share before we brought Pat in.
Yeah. Of course, the sadness of his passing. He lived a great long life. I would say considered to be the best Alabama pro football player of all time. A lot of great stories about him being a great football player, but more than that, he was more than a football player. He was a great man. Probably one of the best gentlemen ever to approach the scene on a national level, coming from the state of Alabama at a time where we were thought of as a backward country, backward state. Bart Starr hit the scene in 1956. He was drafted in the 17th round of the NFL draft that year. 17 rounds went by before a scout had told Vince Lombardi to take a chance on this little guy out of University of Alabama, who some folks forget now. He didn't play for Bear Bryant. He's not a Bear Bryant protege.
Right.
He played for J.B. Ears Whitworth under years that was not very good kind of Alabama football. Right before Bear Bryant came back to coach here. So, but when I crossed paths with him, he was instrumental as an alumnus of the University of Alabama of getting because he was well thought of by all the players, not just his teams, but all the teams that as an alumni of Alabama, he was well instrumental in getting a lot of the alumni together to bring in Bear Bryant memorabilia to the Bear Bryant Museum, where I worked as a student when I was here at the University of Alabama, one of the first employees there. So I crossed paths with him there. My friend Gary Shores crossed paths with him several times and had some great stories of being a gentleman, which is what a great man he was. But a great football player. Went on to win the quarterback battle for Coach Lombardi picked him, and then you go on to win the world championships. He did league championships, and then the first two Super Bowls was the MVP, I believe, of the first two Super Bowls.
He was
to the Hall of Fame in 1977. So his football career can't be argued. But much more than a football player, he was a great gentleman and just a great guy, overall guy.
Yeah, and I really wish his story was told even more on sports today, because there's so many people who only the superstar stories are told and the legends are told, and they're legends before they ever do anything in today's media. But Bart Starr, the 200th overall pick in 1956 NFL draft, non-prospect, benched during his final season, which was a winless at Alabama, and was drafted in the 17th round because of, and I'm sure Wimp will share some of this story, because of the basketball schools. I mean, Alabama's basketball coach had a relationship with the Packers front office, with the one scout that was mentioned by DC a moment ago. It's the only reason he got a chance. And of course, we know that he made the most of that chance. He's the lowest draft pick to ever at the quarterback position, possibly ever. I don't know if there's been anybody drafted in the 17th round or later that has made it to Canton. He's a Hall of Famer, 2 times MVP of Super Bowl, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 5-time world champion. Clearly, in my opinion, the most accomplished Alabama player post Alabama career. Let's see what Pat has something for you, DC. Wanted to share some thoughts with you. Pat, you in with DC. What's on your mind?
First off, my heart goes out to the Starr family. But what a gracious gentleman. My son got to meet him at a pro day, and he was just absolutely so personable, so easy to talk to, and so knowledgeable that he was just so gracious to help my son in what he was doing there at Alabama on Pro Day. And, I mean, just an incredible man. And just wanted to let you know that, I mean, other people talk about him, but, I mean, that he touched my family. And my heart goes out to their family, even though when people live a long life, you still miss them. You still miss them tremendously. You know, and especially on the first, you know, just like Memorial Day or 4th of July. Anytime you have your getting together with large groups of family, you miss them tremendously. And that Bart Starr will be one that will be missed by the Alabama family.
Absolutely.
I agree. I agree with you, Pat. Probably that story about your son, I believe there's countless number of stories that could be told of men about their sons or about their encounters with Bart Starr. He was the quintessential gentleman. I know from a fact, from people that I know personally, people that met him outside the football world, just met him at a store or at a car lot, or you know, one guy I know met him in the grocery store and just thought he was buying his groceries, and he went up to him and said, "Aren't you Bart Starr?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Well, you were my childhood hero." And Bart Starr talked to him, asked him for his card, business card, took his business card. 3 days later in the mail, he sent him an autographed picture of him in the Green Bay Packers jersey with a signed thing. He wrote cards. He was a card writer. Every time that my friend Gary entered the museum, he would write Gary a thank you card. Him and his wife are just you're just a quintessential couple who were just loving and kind and generous to everybody they met.
Okay. Anyway, one more thing before I go. As far, Martin, please don't play that pick six. But listen. But as far as Auburn announcers go, I really think that that Fife was much better as an announcer. You shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but touchdown Auburn to me will go down in history way more than that pick six.
Well, their heart. But that's because you're on the other side of that pick six, Pat. So you may be a little biased. I think great announcers are made by great moments in sports history, and in that season, if Auburn had finished off that season in terms of winning against Florida State, I think that those calls and different things would have been held at a much higher level even than what they are. They just didn't. Yeah. They didn't close the deal that year. But I'm not going to play that one. I'm not going to play that one. I may play the miracle of the Georgia.
Okay.
The Georgia one.
The miracle of the Georgia one, that'd be fine. But before I go though, my favorite as far as in history of announcers goes was when he said, "Down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier."
That was, but see, once again, that was the moment. That's the moment. Absolutely,
it was a moment. It was a moment, but it made his career.
Absolutely.
Have a blessed day, y'all. Thank you, DC. Bye-bye. Okay.
Thanks, Pat. All right, hey, DC, I'm going to give you the benefit of hearing an Auburn call on the Alabama station, and we will honor the life, even though he was on the other side. As I said, I would hope that all over this state, when that day comes, it comes for all of us, as we know, that Eli would be honored across the state as well. But Bramblett had some of the biggest calls, and this was one of them, as he called the Jordan Hare State miracle in Jordan Hare against Georgia.
All right, here we go. 4th and 18 for the Tigers. Here's your ball game. Nick Marshall stands in, steps up, going to throw downfield, just a home run ball, and it is tipped off. And Lewis got it on the deflection. Lewis is going to score. Lewis is going to score. Lewis is going to score. Touchdown Auburn. Touchdown Auburn. A miracle in Jordan Hare. A miracle in Jordan Hare. 73 yards, and the Tigers, with 25 seconds to go, lead 43-38. And we got flags all over.
For those who may or may not have heard, Rod Bramblett, the voice of the Auburn Tigers, and his wife, both unexpected death in a very tragic accident, and also lost her life this weekend, left two children behind, one graduating a senior and a younger child. Also, don't forget the young man that caused the accident, because he's going to be forever linked, DC, with this and have the to get past it. I mean, it's I don't know the story and all that behind him or his story in his life, but that family has been changed forever as well. What are your thoughts? Go ahead.
That's for sure, Martin. I mean, you need to remember all that were involved in the accident, tragic accident. Any time that you have someone at his age, Rod Bramblett, he was not sick or ill. Nobody would expected him to be killed. And his wife, I think they were in their 50s, have two children left behind. The Auburn family is certainly grieving today because of that loss. He will be missed. I think he means a lot to Auburn. A lot of folks, you have to put the rivalries behind you at this point when something tragedy happens. We did that with the tornadoes that took place in both places, and then with the police officer that was killed recently in Auburn, and we ought to do the same thing with this. I like to put things in perspective for all the Alabama fans. It'd be just like we woke up one morning and Eli Gold had been killed in a tragic accident. I think it transcends the rivalry. So I think as far as the Auburn sports, I think he called other sports as well, so not just football. I think he interacted with others.
Right.
So you got the Auburn baseball team. I think going on to the NCAA tournament, and that'll be on their mind. They have that, and I just believe that when an announcer gets not only close with the players and the coaches, he gets close with the fans. Everybody thinks you know him because you hear him so much, and his voice is so familiar. So this will be a very big blow to the Auburn family. So our hearts and prayers definitely go out to them during this time.
Absolutely, and we will say. May Auburn family and the Bramblett family and the family of the young man all have the peace of God as they go through this loss and transition. Coming back on the other side, we're going to continue our conversation with DC. We're going to talk about Alabama softball, Coach Murphy. But I'm going to set that up by asking, because how long is Alabama softball? 23, 24 years? 23. So over half of the time he has made it to the College World Series, Women's College World Series, where that ranks in terms of dynasty, in terms of program. And I'm going to use an NBA question to set that up. We're speaking with DC Capstone Report. You can find that at dccapstonereport.com. Sponsored by freelancepictures.com and rolltopebama.com. Right here on your home for Alabama Sports Talk 102.9 and 100.9. This is The Blitz. DC, we were going to break there, and of course, Alabama softball headed to its 12th College World Series. The program has only been in existence 23 years. So more than half of the time, they've not only been successful, but they've made it a deep run into the College World Series. So I want to kind of pick a couple recent dynasties or exploits. Let me back up. DC, when you look at what Golden State Warriors, I know we got some basketball fans on here, but this is talking about championship runs. When you look at Golden State making 5 straight NBA finals, is that more impressive as a team to make 5 straight, or LeBron making 8 straight with 2 different teams, 4 apiece?
Well, I think they're both impressive. Anytime
you
can go to a championship run, I mean, I don't think you can say one's more impressive than the other. Taking the same team there 5 times in a row is impressive in that you get complacent. But taking 2 different teams there, is impressive because you're doing it with 2 different sets of players. But I think they're both impressive. I think anytime you can go to the ultimate level, it's impressive. And when Alabama has done that more than half the time they've been in existence, it's very impressive in softball.
Yeah, and so now let's look at this because it if you look at talking about consistency, Nick Saban going into this would be his 13th year. Is that correct? And in the last 10 years, he's made 5 national championships. And if they make it back this year and win it, he would have won 6 out of the last 11. Okay, so his streak is when you look at that, is that on par? Or I'm sorry, it's not going to get the same love because of the type of sport. But is what Murphy has done in taking 12 right on par with that in terms of accomplishment with this softball program?
Yeah, I think of all the programs at the University of Alabama that are similar to the football program, you have to throw the softball program in there. They have that same championship mentality. They have that same year after year fight, and they are in the championship round year after year. And so I think that of all the programs, the softball program is right up there with the football program as far as on championship level. And I think the softball program has learned from the football program. And I think every program at the University of Alabama Athletics will do well to take from. That's why I'm so impressed with Coach Oates. He comes in with a lot of the same thoughts. I think our basketball program will be at that level at some point in the future because of him. So it takes a leader like Coach Saban, and I think Coach Murphy is that type of leader.
Speaking with DC Capstone Report, just making some analysis of this softball program that Coach Murphy has put together, making their 12th College World Series in 23-year history. Of course, Coach Murphy and this Alabama program was the first softball program this side of the Mississippi to win a College World Series. And, of course, we know that to win a College World Series, it is absolutely a tough road. Has any coach, when you think about changing a sport, just take Alabama history and college, has any coach had any more of an impact on the direction of his sport than what Coach Murphy did and what Alabama was able to do in 2012?
Well, I don't think so. I think Coach Murphy, I said it on your show before, I think he gets less credit than any coach has done more than for his sport than most any coach. You know, when Coach Saban came in here, Alabama had a history of winning football under Coach Bryant. It hadn't for a while. It had a history under Coach Stallings. It had a history under Coach Thomas. And Coach Saban built upon that legacy and they took it to greater heights. Coach Murphy starts from scratch and builds, and just pretty much, it's been unheard of for this side of the Mississippi to have a championship softball team. It just was thought the Big Ten and the Pac-12 had the market on that. And then he pretty much showed that you can build a program right here in the heart of Dixie in the state of Alabama that can compete amongst all in a national level, and not only compete but win the national championship. So I think he did more for Alabama softball than anyone's ever done. Did more for the sport of softball in the South. Every young girl, if you look at that 2012 championship, the year after that, every young girl in the state of Alabama wanted to play softball. And now you got them going and not only playing on our team, but going and playing on other teams across the nation and being competitive and being good. So I think he's changing for softball and really changed Alabama program from the beginning.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. We were traveling Saturday, and I'm gonna tell you, if you're not a softball fan, and like I said, we don't talk a lot of softball on here just because of the draw. But personally, man, you can give me a softball game and watch it or listen to it. The action is it is intense. I don't know what makes it so much more engaging than baseball, but just the action and things going there. I don't know how much you watch it, David, but when you look at this program and Fouts and their teammates, did you catch the games this weekend?
I did. I watched every one of them, and I can tell you what's exciting about softball. If you've ever, baseball is different because of the way the setup is, but the field in softball is set up so well to let anybody that's playing the game make a difference and use their skill, whatever it may be. On a softball field, the bases are so close that the batter, if they have a lot of speed, can actually hit the ball to a good defensive player and still make it to first base, an infield hit. You got a power can hit it out. You got a pitcher who can throw and hit 4 inches of the plate with the ball every time she throws it. Don't even come close down the middle. So it's so close action. There's so many well-skilled players. That's what's so exciting about softball.
Yeah, it was. We almost missed the end of the game where we were going. We hit a dead sail. I had to switch over to ESPN app, and then I ended up in a spot where there was no connection. And Simeon said, "Dad, you better find us a good spot." But we were able to find, of course, Montana Fouts coming back after. I mean, she had a dominant game 1 against Texas. Then, man, just you really saw the intensity of a coaching impact in this series. As game 2, he makes the decision to go to Fouts, and she gives up a couple of home runs and totally flips the script. Then he comes back the next day with her and changes his lineup. And nobody's probably going to talk about that, but he changes his lineup and puts KB Sides as the leadoff batter, and she ends up, of course, hitting the 3-run homer in I think it was the 4th inning that flipped the script. So just a lot of coaching. I think coaching probably has a bigger impact on softball as well than most of the other major sports.
I do too. I think his decision to change his lineup is probably the best offensive decision he made all year. And when you're talking about he didn't tweak it that much, he just moved Alyssa Brown to the 9th batter. So after the first round, he had her just where he wanted her, right in front of KB Sides, but with her speed. But KB Sides was getting on base percentage more, and he wanted her right in front of Bailey Hemphill to be able to have a chance to get a home run and score 2 runs, and that's exactly what happened. Great coaching move by Murph in that game.
All right. Well, DC, we're going to get the break here. Coming back on the other side, we got a couple other round-robin questions I want to ask you before we get out of here. We'll do a round-robin rapid fire right here on the Blitz with DC Capstone Report. You can find it at dccapstonereport.com. DC, as we look forward, kind of SEC Media Days is upon us. They're going to be talking about a lot of different things. What do you think is going to be the biggest topic coming out of SEC Media Days?
Well, I think there will be several topics coming out. One of the things I think they're going to talk about is this image and likeness legislation to the NCAA. SEC always wants to be on the cutting edge of things that are going on, so they'll be prepared for anything. But I think that's a big deal. You know, there's a lot of things we're talked about. The NCAA, I think that the SEC want to make sure what they would do to how it's going to take care of if you're talking about paying players, where they're getting paid for, and that sort of thing. I think that'll be a big topic. I think there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of thoughts on all sides as to that. I think the transfer portal is going to be a big discussion. I think that's been something everybody's talked about, and I think that transfers again will be talked about, and what the SEC does in that area. There's a consistency of the transfers. I think that's been something that's been very NCAA's inconsistency in waivers and that sort of thing has been something that we talked about. And then lastly, I think one thing that comes up every year, the last 3-4 years, is going to be talked about again. That's alcohol sales in the stadiums. I think it'll be the 3 biggest things that come out of the SEC Media Days this year.
Yeah, and when you look at this transfer portal, DC, I think 7.5. Average of 7.5 players per team right now. Alabama actually has had 12 names go in the portal, and of course, you know, one of those being Jalen Hurts, who was he was transferring whether there was a portal or not. What do you see as, possible solutions? Because I don't want to take away players' opportunities to better themselves, but I think this thing is getting out of hand.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there'll be a way to dial it back somehow. I don't know how they plan on doing that. Once you give so much freedom It becomes when you start restricting it, you look like the bad guy in doing so. But I agree with you. I think it's gotten out of hand. It's not just in football; it's in all other sports as well. You're seeing so many people entertain the transfer portal, basketball, football, other things. So I really think that that probably what they're going to do is put some type of restriction on it within the SEC and see if they can try to get a handle of it before it gets too far out of hand.
And speaking of transfer portals, does what's happened this offseason kind of nullify or hurt the SEC's terminology? I mean, even if somebody goes through the transfer the correct way, have they kind of shot themselves in the foot with the movement of their athletic directors, moving from Texas A&M to Florida, Ole Miss to Texas A&M, and we don't know yet if even Ole Miss is maybe filled by a different SEC, because this is not the first time. Florida's current athletic director was also at Mississippi State. So are they kind of being hypocrites in terms of not letting players move within the conference and having a much stricter rule when they transfer within the conference than they do otherwise, but yet the athletic directors are jumping from what's perceived to be one program or a better program to the next?
Yeah, I think that is the argument on the players' side. They're going to be the argument of the athletic directors moving, the coaches get to move. I think they'll bring it back down to the difference between a business and between a educational for the students. And I think that the number one thing about they're going to try to promote is education-wise, NCAA, SEC. That's why you go to a particular school to get an education, and they're going to try to pull that type of argument that transferring thwarts a good education and lose credits and all that sort of thing. And I think they're just talking about small things to try to combat those feelings on the other side. So I think everybody is going to have to try to get on the same page. If they're going to make something that it's workable, it doesn't get out of hand. And I think there may be some discussion that can be productive during these media days, but maybe, again, it might just be what it is, and that is a smokescreen for the media to try to move on to some other topics, so try to get out of hand that way.
Do you see the Big Ten has made the move to become the wealthiest conference among of all sports conferences? Is this going to put even more pressure on the SEC to potentially add the alcohol sales to allow it in the SEC? And do you think that's a good idea? Why or why not?
I personally don't think it's a good idea to add alcohol sales to the SEC. We already have enough problems in the Southeastern Conference stadiums that we go to. Adding alcohol, in my opinion, is just one more problem. That can be left outside the stadium instead of inside the stadium. We already have problems with people who drink alcohol inside the stadiums and getting out of hand. How much more would it be if it's readily available? So I do think that's a point of contention among some of the SEC ADs and coaches, and I think that ADs mainly want it so they can get the revenue up, and some of the coaches want it, others don't. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on the SEC this year, and they may just have enough votes this year to swing that vote, but they haven't had in the past.
Yeah, and this is another one of those things it's going to be, you may think I'm stretching when I make this connection, but everything about college athletics and college sports is becoming professional with the exception of the players. There's a reason that college football has the following it has, and that's because it's more of a family environment than the pro stadiums and all of that. And sometimes no one has pointed this out. There's families staying at home because of the alcohol sales. There's a lot of people who have taken their families to college stadiums to enjoy the college experience, but they'll stay at home now and miss out on that opportunity because they don't want that element as a part of it. And like I said, everything is going to the pro game except for the paying the players. And if this happens, I'm going to push even more that they need to start doing something to make sure that they're compensating the players. I, of course, from a personal standpoint, from a ministry standpoint, I hope it doesn't happen. But with the way society goes, it won't shock me if it does.
And I agree with you on that. I think the problem with it is, though, once you move there, you've gone the route of the pros. So the next step is paying players.
Yeah.
To do that, I think it dilutes the college game.
Yep.
It's not going to be the same game that you and I grew up with.
I totally agree. Any comments? The new enrollees are starting to hit campus. I call them the Saban dozen that he kept referring to. Any of those guys jump off the page as guys that you're looking forward to seeing? And we'll talk more about this next week as well.
I think everybody's looking forward to see Trey Sanders when he gets here and what he can do. Can he come in and make any impact in the running back room? I think he will. I think he can. And, I think so far so good on the off season. Them reporting is good. If we can just keep through the next few weeks without any major stories of Alabama football, we'll be in good shape.
All right. That's DC Capstone Report. DC, tell our listeners what you got coming up next, when you guys going to get back on the horse and start putting out weekly podcasts, and what you got up at your site right now.
Yeah, Lance has done a great job of following the Alabama softball team through the playoffs, and he'll continue to do that. He'll put up videos and pictures on our website for that. We'll be back with the DC Capstone Report shortly after the NCAA College World Series for softball out in Oklahoma City. After the media day, after the SEC meetings that have to take place, we'll come with a preview show beginning in the 1st of June, and we'll be letting you know when that's going to be. We thank all of our listeners for tuning in. But DCCapstoneReport.com. You can like us on Facebook at DC Capstone Report page, or follow me at Twitter at DavidCott50, at DavidCott50.
All right, that's DC Capstone Report, DCCapstoneReport.com. And I misspoke. I said SEC Media Days. It's SEC Meeting Days that right. They're going to be at. We'll follow that conversation and more. DC, we'll catch up with you next week. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a